Back to our own country, Jenny Palm from Lund University. You are also a member of, what's it called in English? The Council?
The Swedish National Council for Nuclear Waste.
Exactly, that was what I was about to say, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yep, thank you very much. Yes, I'm a professor at Lund University, but I will talk about the work that we are doing in this council. So I will talk about the nuclear waste. And I will actually, I don't have that much time, so I will jump over this. I hope that you are all quite familiar with nuclear waste, but I will give a short introduction for the ones that, especially those that are not from Sweden. But today we have nuclear waste. We store 6,500 ton already today in Oskarshamn. And it's estimated to be 12,000 in the future on the forecast that we can do today, or the SKB can do today, because it is the Swedish nuclear industry that is responsible for finding a place and a method. And the industry has then formed this company, this Swedish Nuclear Fuel Waste Management Company, SKB. So, and we have a method. They have done investigation and they have the method, and it is that they will use copper canisters. They will deposit it 500 meters into the mountain, and they will put bentonite clay around it, and the suggested location is Östhammar. And Östhammar is a little bit north of Stockholm, as you see here. So they are one of the key municipalities that we have when we are discussing nuclear waste. And it's located together with Forsmark, so I will come back to that when I discuss the survey. Many people mix those and think that the name of the municipality is Forsmark, but that is the power plant. The other municipality that is in focus in Sweden is Oskarshamn. So for long it has been Oskarshamn and Östhammar that has been the key actors when it comes to location of this nuclear waste. So where we are today in Sweden is that SSM, our control authority, they have said yes to SKB's application. They thought this was a good idea. The Land and Environment Court has considered the application under the Environmental Code. And the court said, yes, fine, the location is good, let's go for Östhammar. But they said, no, this with the copper canister, this is at this stage not acceptable. We need to do more research on this. And now it's up to the Swedish government to take a final decisions. So it's the ministry that right now is working with this issue. What we are doing in the Council for Nuclear Waste is that we are under the government. We are working for the government. We is a council with the researcher. We are 10 to 12 researchers with different backgrounds, and it is an interdisciplinary council. And our task is to give neutral advice to our government, but it's also the main task is to raise questions that is not raised by other actors in the field. So we are not going to do the same thing as SKB and SSM are doing, but we are doing to talk about things that they are not talking about. What we are working a lot with is to have do seminars, have dialogues with different stakeholders around Sweden, and we really want to have the discussion with citizens in Sweden. So we think that broad participation and transparency are important, and that is important to have a legitimate storage in the end. We think that it would be a big mistake to not try to have these deliberative talks with different stakeholders. What we also experience is that if you think that nuclear power have problem engaging people, then you should try with nuclear waste. This is a really difficult area to raise interest in. So the media are not interested, the citizens are not interested, and it's very few people. I've been in this council for since 2011, and I know all the people that usually show up. It's so few people in Sweden. So that is, but we are meeting and we are trying to invite and we are trying to engage in different ways, and we are also meeting with the NGOs in the area. They are a couple and they are very engaged and try to do the best. But we see that also they have different difficulties. They don't have any funding for information dissemination, and we see that this is a democratic deficit because all the funding comes from SKB. It's always SKB out there talking, and this is a big problem, I would say. And also this is, the NGOs also experience limited and one-sided information flows coming from this. In this, the council said that, yeah, but let's check. We want to see how much do our Swedish politicians and the Swedish citizens know about nuclear waste. We don't have that much resource, or we have no resources in this council, but we asked the government and we have got some money. So in 2013, we asked all the members of the parliament questions. We did a survey. We repeated that to the new parliament in 2016, and then we chose in 2018 and 19 to conduct a survey targeting citizens in Sweden in the age between 18 and 75. I think that the response rate was very good. It's not us that have done this. This is a consultant firm, Samhällsinformation AB, that did this survey for us, so we pay them. So they spend a lot of time calling people, 10 to 15 times. And we have, I think, a fair response rate. And also in the parliament, we have a good representation from all parties. So we asked them similar questions. So, and we have the red is the responses from 2013, the blue from 2016, and the green are the citizens. So we try to ask them similar thing. Before we did this survey to the parliament, we had sent the council sent out an email to all the members of parliament, all the politicians, where we actually told them the answer to the first question. So if they have read our email, they should know this. So the first question are, do you know that it's a final repository for nuclear waste is planned in Sweden? That was the simple question for the citizens, and the politicians got this little more tricky question, but that was a quote from what we have already told them. So what we can see that the politicians are quite aware of this. Interesting, as you will see through when we go through all the questions here, is that the knowledge has decreased. So they were more aware about this issue 2013 than 2016. And why this is, we don't really know, because we had expected, our hypothesis was that they would have more knowledge now the closer we get to a decision, but this is not the case, as you will see. But still quite good, I think. When it comes to the citizen, half of the citizens know that we will have a final repository in Sweden. Fair enough, we think. We asked them, do you know that it will be located in Östhammar? And here we have this Östhammar, Oskarshamn. So it's not that strange, actually, that some of our politicians think that it will be located in Oskarshamn, because they are very central actor in Sweden. The citizens were not aware about this, so they didn't answer Oskarshamn, but 27% of them said that they knew that it was Östhammar. But also there were many, 61% had no clue where it was situated, should be situated. And again, you can see that we have a negative trend in the politicians, that they knew fewer that knows this of some reason. We also asked them about, do you know what solution that SKB suggests when they apply for this? And I think that this was surprisingly many that knew that it was copper canister. But on the other hand, if we are looking at the Swedish media debate the last year, it has been everything about copper canister. It has been crazy much about copper canister, because it has been a science war, you can say, about this, and if we will have corrosion or not in it. And the media thinks this is very interesting. So of some reason, everyone knows about the copper canisters. So this was surprisingly many, we think, among the politicians and among the citizens that knew about that. We asked them, do you think that we in Sweden can manage and dispose nuclear waste safely or not? Yes, I think that they are quite good results. 64 and 69% of the politicians said yes, we think this, we can solve this, and 58% of the people said yes, we think so. And it was quite few that said no, I think, in relation to the ones that actually said yes to these questions, and yeah, a fair number didn't know. We asked the politician, is this an important political issue? We have tried to get access to the parliament, to have a debate, to have a discussion with our politicians, and it's so difficult. So we asked them, is this not an important political issue? And as you can see, they are they all think that this is an important political issue. They think that this is something worth debating politically. To the citizens, we asked them, do you think this is an important issue or not? Because as I said, this is a low-level engagement issue. And also the Swedish citizen thinks when they are called and they are discussing it, is yes, this is very interesting. And that is also what we experience when we are out there speaking with people. When we actually start talking about it, the interest raise immediately, and they think, yeah, this is so interesting. Why do I don't know more about this? So I think that it is interesting, but they still don't want to care about it, really. So we ask another question. We ask the politicians, do you think we should leave to the experts on nuclear waste to decide about how we should manage our nuclear waste? Or do you want to keep that decision, or should we just leave it for the experts? And here I think this is interesting. They said, no, we want to decide this. This is a political issue. So this was clear both times. This is perhaps difficult to understand. This is actually 3 questions. We ask them, the citizens, if they, we ask, do you trust the politicians' decisions on where and how to build a final repository? And then they could say, yes, I agree, I do trust them, or I agree partly, disagree, or don't know. And the next question was, I trust the decision made by the authority, or the investigations done by the authorities on where and how to build. And the third question was, I trust the researcher or the experts in the field. As you can see here, the trust in the politicians are low. It's only 10% of the people in Sweden that trust the politicians when it comes to them making a decision. And keep in mind, it's the government that is going to have to do this decision. But 10% said, 10% said, yes, I agree. But 26% of the Swedes said, disagree. I don't trust the politicians to do this. As you can see, the authorities, I think, SSM has quite good trust by the Swedes, and when it comes to researchers and experts, they have great trust in them. And I can say that those, if you're not from Sweden, in general, Sweden trusts politicians, the authorities, and the experts. So these are usually quite high numbers. So I think that it's quite interesting that we have a low trust with the politicians. We also asked them, and this we only asked the citizens, if we today would have a referendum about future nuclear power, how would you vote? And then we had one option, phase out as soon as possible. They want to stop this now. 14% said that. Phase out when existing plants get old. 32% said that we will run it, but we will not invest. And this was, so I shortened this question a little bit. We will not invest new money into this, but phase them out when they are old. The third is that we should continue to use the existing power plants. That is, we will start investing in them as well, so we can prolong their how long we are running them. 18% thought that. And we asked, and it was quite high number, 26% that wanted to invest in new nuclear power. And this was in a way quite, we have, in Sweden, we have the SOM Institute from Gothenburg that is checking the Swedes' attitudes. And I think this was quite what we expected. It's quite, I think it reflects the SOM Institute very well. But I think it's nice to check this. In Sweden, we are talking about a final repository that we will not have where we can reprocess. But we are not having any prohibition of reprocessing. So curiosity, but we don't have a political discussion about it either. But of pure curiosity, we asked the politicians, do you think nuclear waste should be disposed in a manner that allows it to be readmitted? And this really surprised us, because more than 50% of the politicians said yes. They said yes, definitely, or yes, maybe. And just 27, and the last time the 22% said no. And we think this is very interesting, because we think that this could indicate that this could be an interesting political issue or debate to have in the Swedish Parliament. So, if we should conclude something from those 3 surveys, is that nuclear waste was seen as an important issue. So we have, it would indicate the potential for great discussions, but so far it hasn't been the case in Sweden, but we see the potential for it. We also see that the politicians didn't want to leave for the experts to decide. But we still, so they want to decide, and then we see the problem that the citizens don't trust them when they want to decide. So the citizen would probably have answered, if we ask them, they will probably have said, yes, leave it to the expert to decide on this. I haven't showed you all, but we have gender differences. Women are in general more unsure, and men usually had more knowledge in the issue. So what we can say from that is that the issue has simply attracted less interest from women than from men, and that is also our experience, and also that we have difficulty in attracting the interest from young people. In Sweden, the nuclear waste has been framed as a technical issue and a non-political problem, also in the debate. And this, I think, is reflected in the surveys. More respondents knew that that it was the copper canister that will be used, and knew that the suggested location was Östhammar. And I think that is crazy. Why will people know about this? So technical aspects are hard for both the politicians and the general public to have an opinion on. What will you think about the copper canister? I don't know. So I think that we need more appropriate. It would be more appropriate to discuss the location, for example, because that really affects us all, and we can say something about it. So I think for the future, it's not what we are working with. It's not only important to involve politicians and citizens, but also to approach them with relevant issues and discuss what are the issues that is raised in for example, in the media debate. And it's not the copper canister, but it's issue. We have really interesting issues, I think, how to deal with safety in processes that have implications for 100 years to come. How to inform our future generation that we have a final repository in the mountain. And also this, should we design the repository so that withdrawal of nuclear waste can be done or not? That is a really interesting political question that we can't, as researchers, we cannot answer these questions. We need to have a public and participatory process for them. So I hope I made it, Monica.
Thanks, Jenny. So I noticed the last survey you did was in 2016.
Yep.
And is there a new survey planned, or?
No, because we don't have any resources in the council, so we really just put in our own time, and then we need to ask for resources. So if the government think this, we need to convince them, and we need to ask them.
Okay. Because I guess the reason I ask is that the recent kind of upsurge in the discussion around nuclear may or may not change those numbers.
Yeah, I would assume the reason why we haven't done it either is that it is now on the ministry's table, and I'm not sure that the government really wants us to do this for the moment, because we cannot really interfere in the political discussion either, because it can be a little bit tricky if we do a survey and then it becomes party politics.
Okay. So given the difficulties in attracting, I guess, public interest in particular in this issue, what lessons have you learned or sort of identified, to use Lisa's word, in the process of stakeholder engagement related to this?
That it is so difficult. We have had several times when we, for example, have the radio has said that, yeah, we will come and talk with you, and then something else happened, and then they never come, because this is not that. Of some reason, we have so difficult talking about nuclear waste. Also, when we have these meetings and that workshop. Many people are coming back to nuclear power, and we always say we don't discuss nuclear power because we want to discuss nuclear waste, but they prefer to discuss pros and cons with nuclear power. So I don't know, it's a tricky issue, I think.
And you didn't show that, but I think that you also do surveys around the regions where they've kind of raised their hand, and like Östhammar, where there possibly will be. Can you see differences in attitudes and knowledge between regions?
No, because in Östhammar and Oskarshamn, actually SKB and SSM does that. So we just do things that they don't. So SKB has good control of Östhammar and Oskarshamn, and the support to have a repository and the support for nuclear power in those regions are very high, and that's why they suggest to put the repository there.
Okay.
So that is, and that's why also we chose to do this over the whole of Sweden to see.
We have a question here from the audience.
As you see, it's a rather frustrating situation in Sweden according to this issue. And I think it is not astonishing on account of that is self-censorship, I should say, according to information according to final repository. This has been investigated in 40 years in Sweden, and it is now up to the government to decide. And this question about self-censorship is not only according to waste, but I think it is an international question in the nuclear industry and in the nuclear society. What is your comment on this?
Yeah, but it is with information. Yeah, I think that especially in the nuclear waste is a tricky issue because there are so many. It's such a long period, and we can't really honestly say that we as researchers will know what will happen the coming 1,000 years. And then I usually say that it was not that long ago that we thought that it was a good idea to dump this waste into the ocean, and now we want to dump it into the mountain. And what will the future generation say about that? And then I think, and of that reason, I think it's important that we try to be as inclusive as possible and try to include as many voices we only can in this process. So it's a problem today that we have an information bias, that there are just some actors that have funding to raise these questions.
Thanks, Jenny. Always interesting to hear you. And we now have coffee. Again, I was about to say, but it is again, yeah. And I think it's again 1-4 up, right?